What's up, guys? It's Cardale Jones, and welcome to the first episode of Beyond the Big Ten Ohio State Edition. And we have a very special guest in the building, former teammate Zach Turnure.
That's right.
I said it right.
You said it right.
Perfect. Fun fact, everyone, that I played with Zach for 3 years, and I always just looked at his last name and just said Turner. I mean, it's not spelled Turner, but it looks like it if you quick glance. But, you know, working with Zach over the last 3 to 4 months, I just found out that it's Turnure.
Yes, so, that's right, dude. Hey, and like I told you, man, like everybody butchers it. At this point, I'm like, it is what it is. But if we can say it right, we might as well.
Exactly. Well, thanks for coming on, man. This is a great, man, we just go dive right into it, man. I want to get to know you, have our audience give a chance to get to know you, man. So starting with that, man, where you from?
Yeah, man. So born and raised St. Louis, Missouri. You know, I played lacrosse, football all throughout high school. That's really kind of what led me to Columbus, Ohio, out of St. Louis. You know, I was getting recruited by like some MAC schools, also some like 1AA schools for football. So some smaller schools. And then, you know, lacrosse recruitment kind of took off as I was approaching my senior year of high school. And then that's when like a lot of the bigger offers started to roll in from the bigger schools. And I always wanted to go to a big college town. And I think that that's what intrigued me initially about Ohio State and just Columbus, Ohio. And so when I took my visit for lacrosse here to Columbus, I just like fell in love with the city, fell in love with the school, the university. I mean, anybody who comes around this town, you kind of feel that, you know, that vibrant
for sure.
feel, you know, coming around here. And so decided to actually step away from football and join the lacrosse team here at Ohio State on scholarship. Moved out here in 2013, which was my freshman year. And then we met in 2014 when I, midway through my freshman year in 2013, I was just kind of going through that, like, you know, that doubt of did I make the right move?
The
withdrawal from football. Much of like what we experienced when it left us later on. But yeah, I was definitely experiencing that. While I was playing lacrosse, I just missed it. I missed the game. I missed the brotherhood in the locker room. It's just different. You know, I feel like all these sports are unique in their own way. And I feel like with football, it just has that certain level of intensity with it. And yeah, it drew me back, man. I wanted to potentially transfer, walk on the team. I was trying to figure out what to do. I just knew I wanted to play football again. So basically in 2014, as I was transitioning to my sophomore year of college, I decided to step away from the lacrosse team. I ended up quitting and walking away from the lacrosse team, but had like a really good kind of exit with the coach. I talked with Nick Myers, the head coach of lacrosse.
I was about to say, was Nick still the coach at that time?
Yeah, great, phenomenal coach. He was really good. With just handled the whole situation just really well, and he supported me and was like, "Hey, if you feel like you got to make this jump, like you got to follow your heart, you got to do it." And so, 2014, decided to step away from the lacrosse team, walked on the football team. And that's when, you know, I really started to understand how big time football works.
Listen, I can't imagine walking onto a place like Ohio State. I mean, I remember, you know, kind of, I think it was going into my freshman year, going into my sophomore year, and seeing a walk-on tryout, and I'm just like, what's going on out there? I think they're going to like getting ready for military boot camp or something like that, because it was so intense. And I think it was about 300 guys, maybe 100, but it was a lot of guys, and I think they picked how many to join the team as walk-ons. I think it's
there was like a
not
small
even 10%.
Handful.
Not even 10% of those guys. So out of those 150 guys, probably I think it's maybe opportunity for maybe 7 to 8 guys to walk on to the football program, which is crazy to stand out in all those guys, because you got a lot of guys that's prefer walk-ons coming out of high school. You got a lot of guys that's transitioning from other sports, and a lot of good athletes that say, hey, I want to go be able to have an opportunity to walk on to a major university like Ohio State and to add value to this team. Yeah. And it's pretty cool to see that you was one of the 7 or 8 guys.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. And that's what was so kind of unique about my situation was I came from a pretty reputable high school. We have a great football team, and Ed Warner at the time was recruiting several guys from my high school, and my high school coach actually got me in touch with Ed Warner when I was making this transition, and he was kind of like my foot in the door because I had gotten recruited out of high school. Like I had tape that they could watch, and it was kind of like a weird preferred walk-on situation where like I technically was I didn't have to try out. So I actually joined the team like mid-season, but I didn't get to go to camp. So it was like this weird kind of in-between where I was like a preferred walk-on, but I didn't really like get to participate in camp. So I was kind of just like thrown right into the mix, like literally right out the gate. Virginia Tech week, like literally joined the team, like that week, I think,
Yeah,
leading up to that game.
Yeah, that's crazy. So leading into all of that, just being a walk-on at a university, you hear so many stories about, how walk-ons are treated and things like that. And it's, one thing I can say, and I want to hear your experience from being a walk-on at Ohio State. We had a walk-on quarterback, a few of them in our room. Leon, what was it? Leon Ratliff. I cannot remember his name to save my life, but he only stayed for like one semester. But I mean, we treated this guy as good as we treat anyone else. I'm talking about from the coaches on down. Did you get that vibe going into a room like a linebacker room, or just being around a team as a whole? Because you hear stories about, walk-ons this, they get treated like crap and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. It is some rules and regulations. I don't know how they are now with the NCAA, which, walk-ons I think couldn't eat at our training table, stuff like that. But we used to take so much more food to give to them to make sure they feel as much as a part of the team as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Do you feel like you were treated as, I want to say, equal in that aspect to a certain extent of what we were allowed to do, or how we treated you overall as being a walk-on versus seeing how guys were treated as a scholarship player?
Yeah, dude, I think like at Ohio State, it was really unique with like guys like yourself and, guys who were, just bigger names in the program and more prominent players. Like, I feel like a lot of you guys, like literally for the most part, were awesome. Like we're so like welcoming of the walk-ons. You guys respected us. Like we didn't really feel like outcasts to the players. I think like to the coaches sometimes, like
for sure.
How it is.
I mean, man, yeah.
You can be treated a little bit differently. And that's what was so hard for me early on, was because like, you never want to feel like you deserve like a spot. And I learned that once again. I think we all kind of go through that at one point where we're like, we think we're at a certain level, but it's like, you're not really where you think you are when you're comparing yourself to all these other elite athletes. And so I always kind of felt like I was a little bit more talented, than some of these like standard walk-ons. And so it was kind of hard for me at first when like I was going through that adversity. But what was cool is that like all the players for the most part really were great. And like I always tell people that I'm like, a lot of the guys like really treated us well, respected us, like didn't just like treat us like crap.
Yeah.
Like we were just like a nobody.
Yeah.
Like I said, for the most part, you have those a couple guys where like they're like whatever.
Yeah, exactly. No, I can remember times where especially getting late into the season where, you get your starters a little bit more rest because maybe they're, been banging up or they're banged up. You into week 8, 9, 10.
Oh, yeah.
Where you're trying to really preserve the body for the critical part of the season. And you throw some walk-ons in some situations where, they almost like tackling dummies. You know what I'm saying? So I remember those moments of watching it like, oh, man, Jesus, that's tough. But
yeah.
No, that's great, man. And kind of transitioning into just your time at Ohio State, through the walk-on, being a walk-on, and evidently pretty much putting yourself in a position to add legit value to the team in any and every role you play on and off the field. Now, how was that transition, and how did you get to that point?
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was wild. Like kind of like what I was just saying. I had the naive thought of like, oh, I'm going to, get in here. I'm going to play. I'm going to, like, I had these wild goals.
Because I promise you, every high school athlete coming out of high school who's been recruited now into the end of time is going to win a Heisman, who's going to be All-American. And it's everybody, all those guys are going #1 pick overall in whatever their sport is. I promise you. Because that's all our mindsets. That's all we know.
Yeah. So, dude, of course, like, I had the very similar mindset. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to, get into this program. I'm going to prove myself, play. And adversity hit. Like, you really are, like, really the lowest of the low as far as like the roster goes. Like I will never forget my first year on the team. You had like a block of players that dressed for the game. You had guys that would wear their jersey on the sidelines. And then at the very, very bottom, you had guys with tickets to the stands. Like you literally were a spectator in the stands as a part of the team. Wild. And I was one of those guys to start out. And I wanted to play, but that division was so wide. I'm like, shit, like I got a long way to go. I've got a lot to prove. And, I just realized kind of over time, what are the things that the coaches are looking for? What are the plays throughout practice that they're really like breaking down, looking at, like what are they evaluating? What are they taking seriously? And over time, I got a little bit more strategic about it. It went beyond just like, okay, I know I have to like show up and like, it has to be noticeable that I'm playing well.
Right.
So I think like really starting to take that shift of like, I need to make these reps count. I can't feel sorry for myself going into these practices like I used to, like the first couple of years where it's like, woe is me, like victim mindset, like, blaming the coaches, blaming my scenario. And I just kind of started to take that shift through my later years of, I just got to show up and like give it literally everything I got every single day and bring that high level of effort, especially in those moments where I know like, hey, it's me going against a starter. Hey, it's me going against, our starting kick return team or kickoff team or punt team. And I knew that like Urban Meyer, he was very passionate about special teams. So he was always breaking down that film in front of everybody. So I'm like, this is a chance, to really kind of prove myself against starters.
Exactly. To be evaluated on a high level in front of everybody. We created such a culture of, discomfort around a Woody, which is our, training facility for people who don't know, that it was, you were put on notice every day, from that type of environment of bringing the whole team together. We watching, some top plays, right? It may be a touchdown, but we didn't probably see on the backside where, Joey Bosa bull rushed somebody or, somebody got pancake or somebody got crossed up off the line of scrimmage. And those type of situations was on notice 24/7 for us. And I think that's what really helped us create that culture of discomfort if you wasn't
performing
giving
at
it
that
your
level.
all. Giving it your all or performing at that level and ultimately help us win a national title, which is, I think one of the key features that we had, throughout our team. It was just that culture of toughness and competitiveness, in everything. And some say that, that isn't the way of coaching and training in this day and age now, but everybody got their own opinion about it.
For sure,
it ultimately got us the results we was out to get as a team and as individuals as well. We talk about this a lot of just what that mindset, what that environment has done for us in life after football. And we're going to get to that later on in the show, which I don't know where I would have been if we went to a program that didn't install certain characteristics in us as a team and that accountability level. So that's always good to get someone else's perspective, especially someone else who's been through it literally on the opposite side of the ball. So that's good to know, man. I mean, because like I said, I share the same type of feelings about how we all kind of ended up in the spotlight sooner rather than later or later rather than sooner.
Yeah.
Me going through my time at Ohio State being pretty much treated like a walk-on in the very beginning, third, fourth string quarterback going in there. And even though my play wasn't on the field yet, I knew everything I was doing in practice, sacrificing my body and preparing was ultimately helping this team get the success that we wanted. Especially in my earlier years, I make the joke that I was probably the only quarterback live in Ohio State history all the way up until my last year of college. Literally. It was like, hey, you can't hit them now because literally we have no one else. But those little type of things, and I love that because I knew I was helping getting our defense ready for any and every situation that a potential other team quarterback may face. But look, really just diving into this team now and kind of some of the similarities that I personally see in this 2023 team versus, some of the teams we were a part of at Ohio State now. And I make the comparison all the time that this team remind me of 2015. Hopefully they get the different results than we did, even though we were able to win a Fiesta Bowl. But do you see some of those similarities? And I'm gonna tell you, mine's are dominant defense, offense with a lot of talent, just still haven't figured it out yet. But they show flashes, and when they show those flashes, it looks amazing. But the defenses just keep getting better. They keep being consistent. Do you see some of those similarities?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel like, a lot of times, especially with, like, the offensive side of the ball, like, you need that chemistry and that cohesiveness on the defensive side. But, like, I feel like on the offensive side of the ball, like, it is crucial that everybody's on the same page. You experience that as a quarterback. Me even being on the other side of the ball, it was very evident that, like, when you guys were in your flow, everybody was on the same page. Receivers, linemen, running back, quarterback, across the board, everybody's on the same page. Like, that's when the magic happens. Like, that's really when you see these explosive teams take off. And I feel like
and offense is the ultimate team sport. Football is the ultimate team sport, but offense is the ultimate team sport because you can have 11 guys. You can have 10 guys do the right thing, one guy do the wrong thing. The play look like dog shit. Right, for the most part. But think about on defense. You can have 10 guys going the wrong way. The DB make a pick.
Right.
Or supposed to make a sack, strip sack. Oh, that was the best play ever.
Yeah.
But no one sees the other 10 guys actually screwed it up.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So offense is the ultimate team sport, and it's ultimate when it comes to accountability, because I got to trust and believe that my guy to my left, my guy to my right, if I'm the quarterback, the guys in front of me are doing what they supposed to do for the success of this play.
Absolutely.
And it looks so crazy on offense because sometimes we judge the success or stand on track. So if you're getting, 4 yards a pop, you stand on track because 4 is the first down.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I kind of look at some of the things now within this program now, like just the culture, it just shifted because of the culture shift in our society.
Yeah.
Right. Not good, not bad, just different.
Just different.
Right?
Yeah. It's a different time.
Yes, it's just a different time, and like I said before, this team just reminded me of that 2015 team where our defense really held us together.
For sure.
Throughout the whole year, because we was going through so many ups and downs on freaking offense, just a lack of production with all these star players. What was you guys even over there talking about in the defensive rooms, or just looking at us in practice or in games? Like, they got all these guys score some points. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, I would love to know, what was you guys' mindset going into these games?
Yeah, I feel like, a lot of times the defense knows it's their job to hold the team, obviously, to low amount of points. Like, that's the goal. Is like, we've got to hold this team from scoring, and like at the end of the day, like, that's our job. So as you know, I mean, there's always the beef and the talk back and forth, offense, defensively. But I feel like at a very foundational level, it was like, hey, we know if we want to go far, we got to keep doing what we're doing. We got to hold them and hold these teams to low points. Like, we can't have them scoring. We can't have, the offense, like, basically like not throwing the blame, I would say, really just taking ownership of like, hey, we know we're a foundational component of this team with holding teams to, less touchdowns, less points in general, and that's just what we have to continue to do if we want to be successful long term. It goes back to that team culture, kind of like you talked about.
I mean, you will walk through our facility and you see all the time, do your job.
Yeah, do your job. Yeah.
At the end of the day, if I was a coach, and my mentality would be very similar to a lot of the coaches that we were coached by, because at the end of the day, you got to do your job. Yeah. I don't care what the offense do. I don't care what the defense do.
Whatever they're doing, like, is that
right? Exactly. Well, you got to stop this team. If you offense, your job is to score.
Yeah.
Right. You quarterback, your job is to protect the football, put us in the right position to have success. Simple. I don't care about the circumstances. I don't care about the weather. I don't care if you're hurting or anything. Guess you hurt? Yeah. Okay. Everybody's hurting. Like, so the excuses, we eliminated excuses before they even came up. Yeah. Right. So I see a lot of that in this team, where I don't see a real standout player that outside of the names Marvin Harrison and Mecca, things like that. That is like, they're the reason why we're winning the games, versus this is a whole unit type of deal where I don't think our defense at Ohio State right now has that dominant pass rusher right now or run stopper right now. But that unit up front is playing so well together, they don't need one. Right? Out of the front seven guys, because you're a former linebacker, who are you most impressed with right now for this 2023 team?
Dude, yeah, I mean, just watching these linebackers like Steel Chambers and Tommy, really just like attacking the football and attacking the line of scrimmage. Like, I think that's something that they've really turned a corner, with their talent and with just like their awareness on the field. And I think a lot of it is a maturity thing. Yeah. That's what we're seeing with this Ohio State team in 2023 is like, can we put it together? Can we play as a cohesive unit like we were just talking about? And I think if they just continue to do their job, like we talked about, keep that mindset of, hey, like, regardless of how one side of the ball is performing, I'm going to show up and do my job. They're going to keep pushing the needle forward. And yeah, I would say like just up front, between the linemen and the linebackers, just seeing them attacking the line of scrimmage. Like, same thing on offense. Like, in the last game, you started to see that push from the O-line. You started to see that line of scrimmage being moved. And I feel like we're doing a really good job on the defensive side of the ball, really attacking and pushing that line of scrimmage on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I agree. Had an opportunity to really sit down and watch the game versus Penn State this past weekend. I think we started to lean on them a little bit on both sides of the ball in the front seven towards later in the game. That's what you usually see, especially this time of the year when it gets a little bit colder. And, it hurts a little bit more getting off that ground, off that turf. And, usually the toughest team is, kind of prevail in those situations. But when we talk about tough teams and tough environments, Ohio State is on the road this weekend, going up to Madison, Wisconsin, playing Wisconsin. your former coach.
That's right.
Coach Fick. What do you remember about Coach Fick and being coached by him to your time at Ohio State?
So Coach Fick was one of those coaches where when you're playing under him, you hate him. But then when you
Not
leave,
the first time I heard this.
but when you leave and you're not being coached by him anymore, you're a changed person. I'm forever grateful for him and for what he instilled in us, as men, really. And I kind of joke about that because I love Coach Fick. But he made it kind of like you were saying earlier, the culture. He made it so uncomfortable that, like, if you were not excelling, if you were not playing at an elite level, like, you stood out. It was uncomfortable. Like, you were a sore thumb in that linebacker room if you were, not showing up on time, if you were not bringing a high level of energy and effort every single day. Like, he instilled that in us. We couldn't just, like, walk into a meeting room and, like, be like, it's just another day. Like, you got to bring energy, you got to bring enthusiasm, and, like, they're calling that shit out. Yeah. And that's just something that Coach Fick did so well, is he made the culture so uncomfortable for those that didn't buy in that it brought up just everybody in that room and elevated us. And I'll just never forget something that literally changed the whole course of my life and my mindset was an exercise that we did. It was like one off season, and Coach Fick did this, and I think we did it as a team, where it was like, would I hire you? Mm-hmm. And it was like based off of, like, your attitude, like, how did you show up? Like, how did you contribute to the team? What was your attitude? What was your demeanor like every day? And they would literally evaluate you not only as a football player, but literally as a man, and be like, would I hire you if I was, like, someone that was looking to hire you? And I remember, like, my first off season, he was like, I wouldn't hire you. and it was very, like, straight to the point, but
that goes back to the point, not to cut you off and let you finish your story.
Yeah,
that goes back to the point of the environment that we created. It was 100%. Always on notice. It was always environment being uncomfortable. So if I'm telling you this, but I'm also going to give you the tools and the reasoning why to hopefully help you change my mindset or an employer's mindset at the end of the day, so you can get that job, so you can have that opportunity. And it's so great to hear, and it's unique to hear the different cultures underneath the culture.
Yeah.
Right. We had this culture as a team, and then every position unit and their leaders, their head position coaches, had its own culture that was installing into those players.
Yeah.
Right. So that's it's great to hear that Coach Fick, put you guys on notice in such an environment where it was brutally honest.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, I feel like in a lot of what we do, I feel like maybe in a lot of programs today, like, maybe you just don't have that. Maybe you just don't have those coaches, like, calling guys out because it's uncomfortable in the moment. But it makes you a better person long term. And like I said, I mean, that changed the whole course of my life and my mindset approaching, jobs, approaching my own entrepreneurial journey, like really taking into consideration all the little things, like the details, how you show up, like, what is the attitude, like, being, like, on time, all the little things that, like, that other people don't think about, we stress over and we obsess over. And that's what Fick did, to me and to a lot of the guys that played under him. And I can only imagine, that is a culture that he's instilling, into Wisconsin, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, because you look at the places he's been so far as a head coach, Cincinnati, now having an opportunity at Wisconsin. We'll see maybe one day back at Ohio State after Ryan Day wins 1 million championships and ride out into the sunset. But you hear the same things about some of the players that he coached at Cincinnati. Sauce Gardner, all pro freaking defensive back for the Jets. He talked highly of Fick. Kobe Bryant, defensive back for Seattle. He talks very highly of Fick. And the list goes on from people that he's had not just coach-player relationship with, but just any type of relationship with. He's a guy that is going to demand an excellence out of anyone because he's giving you his all every day.
100%.
He's the same guy every day. And he was actually the guy who recruited me to Ohio State out of Cleveland, out of Glenville. So always had that respect for him. I always thought that was weird that, I thought they were trying to tell me something when it was a defensive guy recruiting me. I'm like, I play quarterback though.
You guys moving me to DN?
Yeah, I'm just like, what's going on here? But no, that's crazy. And I think, you talked about the lessons that Coach Fick has installed in you, or things that you picked up from him that help you through life and life after football. One of the biggest things that were on notice when we were playing, for the most part, especially at Ohio State, was concussions. That was the biggest thing, right? I think the movie Concussion had just came out. Some bad things that happened around the NFL as far as some hits where some guys that shouldn't have went back in games at that point. I think it was like 2014, 2013. So concussions was the biggest thing, right? You saw the technology and the development of different helmets and the rules start to change on crackbacks and stuff like that. And now that still an emphasis, but now it's more in sports and life period now in today's society is mental health. So a lot of things that people don't understand, the transition from playing a sport you've been playing all your life since you was probably 6 years old. Let's say if life after football ends for guys at 22 on average, right? You know, you've been playing a sport. This is all you know for the most part. The way that you operate in a football arena, the way that you operate in, for the most part, in a locker room is really not acceptable in the real world. So you have so many athletes, you know, especially in a sport like football, that have to one day, sooner rather than later, for majority of us, had to hang up those cleats when, you know, and a lot of that time is not even determined by your own circumstances, right? It may be some other circumstances you can't control that forces you to hang those things up. And that mindset of being an athlete of just, oh, suck it up, deal with it, fight through it. Oh, we don't have time for emotions and all that stuff. That is complete opposite for life. And, you know, and I think a lot of guys who struggle with the transition for life after football, whenever that day may comes, it's because of some of those things that we were installed in at such a young age playing this sport. With your transition with life after football and some of the great things you're doing now with, you know, you and your fiance podcast, and then, you know, you in a in the training world, in the fitness world with everyday athlete, how did you deal with some of those kind of mental barriers and, you know, for the most part, some of those depression type things starting to seep in when you decided to hang it up?
Yeah, man. It's like you said, it's one of those situations, like this whole concept of the transition is just so fascinating to me because it's not something you really understand until you go through it. It's like one of those things where, like, and I was even talking to other guys we played with that are transitioning out of playing in the NFL, and it's like, that's all you know. Like, that's literally, no matter what, like, as hard as you try, it becomes who you are. Like, it does. It becomes your complete identity. And when that's gone, you know, you are very lost. You know, it's a struggle. And I think a lot of us underestimate, like, how difficult that transition really is until you face it and you're literally going through it. And it's like, damn, like, this is really over. Because it's like you said, your whole life you've been really groomed to operate in a way, you know, for that sport. And it's going to look different now. And it's going to be, you know, something totally new and different as you step into life beyond that sport and beyond that reality that you were in for so long. And I know for me, like, I underestimated how much it would like, I would struggle. And I remember, like, being at the peak, like, reaching all of these goals, you know, becoming a scholarship athlete on the team after being a walk-on, like, getting the national championship. Like, you hit, like, the highest of highs. And for a lot of people, like, we may never reach that again.
Nothing. I mean, in your real world, you're when it comes to just life after ball and your careers after that and anything, you may never reach the pinnacle of whatever field you in. If that's being a mailman, if that's being a CEO, or if that's working for a Fortune 500 company, right? You may never get to that role of, I'm having the highest of highest success in this field, and it's no another level from this. Right? I'm a college athlete. I can't win a national championship, or it's nothing after winning a national championship.
Yes.
Right. So that's a great point you make, because like you said, a lot of people don't cope with it or deal with it in a way, and you know, the most accurate way, from the way we eat, from the way we sleep, from the way we train, things like that. I'm like, you know, you can't just keep putting down 3,000 calories a day and not burning them off as you used to do in a practice or in a game, or just, you know, going through that weekly routine of, you know, and we talking about it because now, you know, for a lot of people who don't know, Zach is a personal trainer now, and he owns his own business, Everyday Athletes, where we talked about the way that you train me. It's not one size fit all. No. Right? So my training regimen from you is completely different from your 50, 30 other clients. Right? So you understanding that, and, you know, think about when we was training with football, we all do the same thing. Yeah. We all try to figure out how can we move the most weight as possible, or how can we all develop this explosiveness or jumping or all these different abilities. So just the whole mindset change, I think people don't understand it's every aspect of your life has to shift in a direction where it's going to be more suitable for you long term in society. You know, but some of the things we do learn from this sport, teamwork, dedication, sacrifice, you know, hard work and things like that, it does help us in the real world, you know, in the relationships that we have made throughout this sport. But it's just we have to go about them a little bit differently.
Exactly. Yes. And it's like taking that, like you said, like taking those things that we learned as an athlete and applying them to our life after. And that's, you know, earlier you asked me, like, you know, how have, you know, I coped with, you know, feeling that loss and that almost those depressive emotions of like, I'm no longer this person I was. And that's what made me fall in love with health and fitness and training and treating your body in a healthy way. Because what we did as athletes, if you think about it, if you boil it down to its foundation, it was personal development. Yep. It was, how can I become a better athlete? How can I become a better quarterback? How can I watch, like, what do I need to do that? It's to watch the film. It's to fuel my body properly. It's to train. And at the very foundational level, we always had that progression from our sport. And when that leaves, we have no progression. And without that progression, we go crazy.
I know. I mean, I just recently wrote a book and, you know, and it just came out about 3 weeks ago and everybody kept asking me, how did you start this? When did you start? It's like, it was when the first year COVID, that was the first time I was out of sports in fall. And it was out of my routine. I was waking up at the normal times I would usually go train. There was no training because gyms were closed. There was no balls, no film to watch. And I'm just looking at my day like, what am I supposed to do? Right? So that was one thing that I just picked up. And I will never forget this. I was with the Buffalo Bills my rookie year. And it was actually Coach Lynn, Anthony Lynn, who drafted me there. And then he traded for me when he got the head coaching job with the LA Chargers at the time. And we had our rookie symposium, and I was speaking to some of our guys. And, you know, one thing he stressed, he always knew clearly when you in it, you know. Well, you know, but you don't know that everybody think they go play for 20 years, right? Everybody think they go play for a long, long time. But the reality is that don't happen for the majority. And one thing he always stressed to help make football fun again at that level, because it's such a stressful, high intense environment where every day you won't notice as well. He would say, find something you love to do outside of football so football can be easy again, so you can enjoy it, so you don't have that burden on your shoulder saying, oh my God, if I don't make it, I don't know what I'm going to do, right? Because it's so many other factors that plays into this sport that can hinder you from quote unquote making it. You know, you have so many different things, and I try to stress this to, you know, I have a nephew who's playing right now and at a high level, and I was like, dude, you have to do everything in your power to make sure you are doing the things that's going to help you reach your goals, because there's so many things that you can't control that's going to affect that, right? From coaching staff, from potential position changes, from someone might be better than you, right? To offensive style or defensive style. It's so many things factors that you don't control that has a major impact on your success of this sport. The ones that you can't control, what you put in your body, your rest, and all, you better control the shit out of those things. You know, and a quote before we wrap it up here, you know, that Coach Meyer used to always say to us, and I literally live my life by this now. You have a goal, and if you're doing something that's going to help you reach that goal, do a lot of it. And you don't think it's going to help you reach that goal, don't do it. It's simple, right? If it's going to help you reach your goal, do a lot of that. But you can ask yourself, and I get an example when I have opportunity to speak to people. I say, okay, my goal right now is to, let's say, it's drop 20 pounds, right? Well, I'm headed home and I'm hungry. If I stop at McDonald's, is that going to help me reach my goal and get a freaking Big Mac? Or if I go home and eat some of the meal prep I already had, or eat healthy, which one is going to help?
Right.
Okay, I probably go home. Okay, well, go home. You know, so it's very simple. So on that note, man, I definitely appreciate it. Thanks for giving us some insight on just, you know, your time at Ohio State and kind of a little bit of life after football. And I appreciate it, man. And go Bucks.
Hell yeah, man. Go Bucks. Thank you for having me, guys.